A wise man once said,
people need to cite their shit. My God, oh my God, my God, everybody, it's so easy. Just cite your shit.
Let me tell you a little story as to why you should. About this time last year, I'd been planning to make a video about Spy Family. In my endlessly futile quest to at least make some topical videos, I thought it would be a good pick. And watching it had reminded me of something that I had heard a long time ago. The three faces theory, which goes something like this. The Japanese say you have three faces. The first face you show to the world. The second face you show to your close friends and your family. The third face you never show anyone. It is the truest reflection of who you are. I thought this was very nicely reflected in Spy Family. The first face of the Forger family is the delightful and charming mask that they show the world. A widower and father who remarried for love. A prim and proper woman helping give the family a second chance. A daughter who is energetic yet elegant and gifted enough to enter the illustrious academy. Then there is the second face, known only to them. The marriage was purely for logical reasons, to avoid the disapproving eyes and social pressures against a single father and an unmarried woman, all to afford the child a better chance at a future. Finally, there is the third face, each of them having a secret identity and world completely separate and hidden from the other. That of a spy, fabricating the whole family as a cover story, an assassin needing an alibi, and an esper, desperate to have and maintain a normal life. The second face even has multiple layers, with Yor not knowing that Anya is adopted. And these faces, these masks, fits with the broader theme of traditional family structures, and the way people come together to form makeshift ones as a way to hide from pain or pressure. I thought this was a pretty good thesis, might snag some decent views, and seemed pretty easy to write. But as I sat down to do so, something started nagging me, bugging me in the back of my mind, a feeling something wasn't quite right. Where had I heard that three faces thing before? I'd assumed that I just read it somewhere along the line, in a book or an article, or perhaps a friend told me about it. There's a very similar concept in Japanese called tatemaya and honne, which is public personality and private opinions, that the Japanese place a lot of importance on, so maybe it was related to that. My preliminary searches found a lot of blogs, posts, articles, etc., all basically clones of each other, all of them showing this image, which cites the quote to unknown, an immediate red flag that this was all bullshit. I couldn't find any mention of similar Japanese terms other than tatemaya and honne, some expressions that mean sort of two-faced, and an archaic expression that has a meaning of sort of jack of all trades. Eventually, I found the truth. It's not a Japanese saying at all. It comes from an excerpt of the unfinished tome of the 17th century Jesuit missionary Johann Rodriguez, The History of the Japanese Church, who lived in and wrote extensively about Japan at the time, where he wrote, or at least his English translator did, the Japanese people are so crafty in their hearts that nobody can understand them. Whence it is said that they have three hearts, a false one in their mouths for all the world to see, another within their breasts only for their friends, and the third in the depths of their hearts, reserved for themselves alone, and never manifested to anyone. A version of the quote later appeared in James Clavell's 1975 doorstopper, Shogun, set during the time of which Rodriguez lived. There's even a character based on Rodriguez in the novel.
Editor me here. It's even a character called Rodriguez who says this, different from the character directly based on the real deal though, espousing it in a very similar fashion, as advice to the main character. Perhaps even more racistly than the actual dude, I mean, Jesus Christ. Though, as Henry Smith, author of Learning from Shogun, points out, one must realize that the inscrutable stereotype itself was in full flower in the era of Shogun. So it could be an appropriate characterization, not necessarily endorsement from Clavell himself.
This is likely where the proverb version of the saying was popularized, and the association with the Japanese was reinserted because saying versus saying Japan. This took all the wind out of my sails. I think the analysis of the characters is still fine, but such a convoluted mess of misquoting and attributing just soured things too much. I was going to use this as an example how characters in anime can still have elements of Japanese coding despite being set in a fictional European country, but since none of the quotes themselves were said by anybody Japanese, this would have left a bad taste in my mouth. I could still theoretically make that video by repurposing it with using tatemae and honne, but damage was done, and for the time being, it's shelved. So far, that might seem more of a story about proper research than citing sources, but don't worry, dear viewer, I am arriving at that point, do not fret. Well, imagine that I hadn't decided to do that research, or even worse, done the research and decided to make the video anyway despite knowing it was incorrect. Or even just that I made this very video, but didn't specify where I found the information or didn't put it in the description. In the first one, I'm ignorantly spreading misinformation. In the second one, I'm knowingly spreading misinformation. And the third one, I'm basically just going,
Nah, bro. Trust me.
In all three, you, the viewer, would have no way of knowing or verifying whether the information I presented to you is correct without doing your own research. Which isn't impossible, of course, but it would be inconsiderate and irresponsible of me not to do so. This is sadly a very common occurrence though, especially in video essay spaces. References to interviews we aren't privy to, insider production info with nothing backed up, media concepts briefly mentioned, barely elaborated on. In my opinion, when these aren't cited, it's at best laziness and at worst gatekeeping and spreading misinformation. In the absolute worst cases, this can lead to a recursive reuse of bogus rumor, to the point that even if you did cite, all easily accessible sources are based off of rumor anyway.
Editor me here. One of the most famous examples of this is Karekano, where it is incredibly difficult to find anything discussing the infamous ending of the production of the anime and its relationship with the director Anno Hideaki, without tripping over a seemingly reliable source quoting pure rumor.
So when should sources be sorted? Well, anything that isn't either your direct opinion or something that isn't immediately obvious within the work itself. But I think for video essays there are three key areas. 1. Anything from an interview, discussion, commentary, or anything else a staff member supposedly said regarding the work itself, whether it's a production mishap or regarding the story content. 2. Anything to do with statistics, sales, distribution, really hard numbers of any kind. 3. Any relevant concepts that are outside the immediate framework of the media. If you're talking about how the work reflects fucking Nietzsche or some shit, you should show where your understanding of Nietzsche comes from. So it really depends on the video or article itself. A simple review of a show or a seasonal probably doesn't need more than an interview or two, if that. Whereas a comprehensive overview of a director or a studio probably needs a lot more. Instead of saying, Yamada Taro said that, and which we have no way of quickly verifying if that's true, just rewrite it to say something like, Yamada Taro said in an interview with Tanaka Takeshi in 1993, done, simple as that. Put a link in the thing in the bio, done, let's go to lunch. Or simply put like text in lower thirds saying where you found the source, or like in here, or fucking here in your teeth, I don't give a shit. And your sources don't have to be all like,
ガルブレースや大塚
if it's just some tweet that an animator said, just cite the tweet, bro. It's fucking just cite the shit. If your video is captivating enough, most people are probably going to want to explore the topic further anyway. So if anything, it just adds more value to your piece by showing everybody where you got your insight from. And yeah, if it's obvious enough, you don't need a source, like if it's front page of Google shit, like your name was directed by Shinkai Makoto. No fucking cretin's gonna be in the comments like, I'm a source. But then again, what's obvious to you might not be obvious to all. For example, I'm pretty confident that my regular audience knows the terms endless everyday and kisho tenketsu, because I mention them every bloody video. But there are always going to be viewers who, for them, it's the first time ever hearing those terms. I also can't assume that I remember every single facet of a book or article or source 100% accurately. The Three Faces debacle is proof of that. Just use your discretion or gut feeling. If you had to look it up or research it, you should probably just cite it anyway. Now, sources don't immediately make your opinion better by default. They can be misconstrued in lots of ways, or quote mined into oblivion, and sometimes they're just flat out bad or incorrect. But the mere act of citing gives you a certain amount of accountability and credibility. Like, bro, it's a get out of jail free card, man.
Editor me here. I originally gave an example from my History of the Term Anime video, but ironically it ended up being a very poor case of citing, and it just took way too long, so stay tuned for a follow-up video where I'm going to dive into that.
Now, there is always the possibility that people will just not trust you if it comes out that you have one bogus source. Perhaps even, sadly, more than if you had none at all. And the opposite is true too. People might trust bogus information as long as there is a cited source, never actually bothering to verify for themselves whether it's true. And sometimes the trail of a source just fails, either due to being untraceable or just losing information somewhere along the way. Tom Scott has a couple of great videos talking about this very topic. I ran into this very problem for this video, ironically, trying to tie back that the three faces thing came from Rodriguez. The majority of pages I came across were citing near word-for-word Stack Exchange post on the topic, who had quoted it properly and listed the volume and page number. But the book itself was unfinished, written in Portuguese, and the English translation of this said unfinished Portuguese manuscript was just nowhere near accessible to me. Like, the amount of malware I got trying to download this thing, and I could have tried to actually buy it, but no. Not for the views I'm getting, boy.
Editor me here. The quote is definitely in the Shogun novel, and as mentioned earlier, Henry Smith claims it did come directly from the real Rodriguez himself, with some minor paraphrasing. He also further cites some quotes from the translated English version of the original text by Michael Cooper.
So I'm fairly confident in asserting this point, but there could always be a broken link in the chain somewhere, especially since it crosses multiple language barriers and differing time periods.
Editor me here. And it's not like the three identities idea itself is a particularly deep or uncommon philosophical observation. A very similar idea appears in the first poem in T.S. Eliot's Old Possum's Book of Practical Cats, titled The Naming of Cats, in which Eliot writes that cats have three names, a familiar name given to them only by their humans, a more particular one given in secret, and a final one which only the cat themselves knows of. Essentially the same concept, anthropomorphized through cats and using names instead of hearts, faces, or fucking gallbladders or whatever. But the idea is the same. That people are complicated characters and they present themselves in different manners to different social groups and settings. It's possible Eliot knew of Rodriguez, or heard some bastardized version of the quote in his day. Or that Clavel read Eliot too. Bruh, I'm gonna be real with you, I don't even know anymore. I'm writing this in the heat of the hottest December day on record. And this segment isn't even really that relevant to the main point. It just kept popping up in my research, so I wanted to put it in. I probably won't even be fucked to re-record yet another fucking editor me here bit. Fuck this. Why don't you just get Gil from Gil Lies here, do it for me instead. Wait, what?
There does reach a point where you've done all the research you possibly can at your current capabilities or resources, and you just have to trust in what you've already done. But that is exactly why it is important to make an effort to show your work, and just be honest about it as well. Obviously, there are fields that are far more important to take citations seriously. Journalism, scientific journals, government and policy, race relations. On the level of priority, anime is probably somewhere near the bottom. But considering the sharp cultural differences between the environments in which it's made and consumed, the obtuseness of the language and number of fluent in Japanese Nihongo de oke in their bio, people with fucking N4 certs, and the explosive increase in overall popularity of anime in Japanese media, a baseline level of consideration is needed for any content creator. Anime was a fairly inaccessible hobby for many up until relatively recently, and the history of the fandom is rife with some of the craziest and persistent rumors and misconceptions, some of which have stuck around until today. My Spy Family video might have actually done some decent numbers. It might have convinced a few people of the theory. But it would have been nothing more than further rumor spread. If we don't all try to raise the bar to the minimum, You'll forever be stuck having to hear things like, Toriyama wanted to end Dragon Ball after Frieza. Gainax ran out of budget for the last 2 episodes of Eva. Miyazaki said anime was a mistake. Or the Japanese say we have 3 faces. I need some food. I'm gonna get some KFC.